President Biden is considering a number of ways to help the Cubans. He also had strong words about communism. Joining Amazon founder Jeff Bezos on the upcoming historic flight is the youngest person to ever fly to space, 18-year-old Oliver Damon. That's after the original ticket winner had scheduling conflicts. And with World Emoji Day on Saturday, Adobe released its global findings, including which emoji is the most popular. This comes as Microsoft announced a refresh of 1,800 emojis across all its apps and services. Tune into Deep Dive as we explore these topics and more. Hello and welcome. This is Deep Dive and I'm Tiffany Meier. President Biden says the White House is considering a number of ways to help the Cubans. Biden also cracking down on the Cuban regime, calling it a failed state that represses its people. He also had strong words about communism.
Communism is a failed system, universally failed system. And I don't see socialism as a very useful substitute.
This comes as the Cubans protesting say what they are fighting is communism, not what many say are shortages of goods. But Biden says it is tricky coming up with ways to help Cuba in a way that won't be taken advantage of by Cuba's communist regime.
For example, the ability to send remittances back to Cuba. I would not do that now because the fact is it's highly likely that the regime would confiscate those remittances or big chunks of it.
He said he'd also give vaccines, but only if an international group administered them. As for the internet blockage,
we're considering whether we have the technological ability to reinstate that access.
Florida's governor says restoring the internet is one of the most effective things the U.S. can do.
The one thing that communist regimes fear the most is the truth. And if we're able to help Cubans communicate with one another, also communicate to the outside world, that truth is going to matter.
And the Cuban government announced Wednesday it is lifting customs restrictions on food, medicine, and hygiene products. The announcement comes 3 days after mass protests erupted across the island, driven in part by chronic shortages in stores. The new measure will stay in place for the rest of the year. Cuba's president has called protesters criminals. That's a stance shared by Black Lives Matter, who blame, quote, inhumane U.S. sanctions on Cuba as the heart of Cuba's current crisis. But Fergus Hodgson, director of Econ Americas, a financial consultancy company, tells NTD's Miguel Moreno the U.S. sanctions are not at the heart of the crisis.
The fact is Cuba can trade with any country on the planet except Israel and the United States.
So this begs the question, if these sanctions weren't in place, would the Cuban people be in a better situation than they are now?
Marginally so. It's hard to say. The sanctions were put in place by the U.S. government actually first in 1958 and then ramped up in 1960 to restrain an abuse of power, because in 58 they had a Batista, a dictator who was behaving aggressively, and the U.S. did not want to give more military arms to them. Then when the Castro regime came in, they were just nationalizing and confiscating private property. So would people be better off? Maybe. The point is that the goal is to not empower the regime. So the people might in the short run be slightly better off, but they would be stuck with this parasitic regime.
The Black Lives Matter Instagram post got nearly 100,000 likes, but the overwhelming number of comments tell a different story. A few Republican senators called it support for a communist regime. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki blamed Cuba's communist ideology for its economic failures.
Communism is a failed ideology, and we certainly believe that. It has failed the people of Cuba. They deserve freedom. They deserve a government that supports them. But I would note that the ideology of the government, which has failed, has led to a lack of access to economic opportunity, to medical supplies, to COVID vaccine.
Black Lives Matter is asking President Biden to end the economic sanctions. Now, let's turn to some lighter news. Amazon founder Jeff Bezos is giving $200 million to the Smithsonian Institution for its National Air and Space Museum. The Smithsonian says it's the largest gift since it was founded in 1846. According to the Smithsonian, $70 million of his donation would help with museum renovations, and the remaining money will be spent on building a Bezos Learning Center. It would encourage students to explore science, math, and engineering. This donation comes as the world's richest man is about to take his first flight to space next Tuesday. The flight is set to take place on the 52nd anniversary of Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin's Apollo 11 moon landing. Bezos' rocket company recently got government approval to launch people into space, himself included. The Federal Aviation Administration issued its okay on Monday. The license is good through August. Blue Origin's flight should reach a maximum altitude of roughly 66 miles before parachuting into the desert. Bezos founded Blue Origin in 2000. He will take his company, Blue Origin spacecraft, with 3 other crew members for a historic unpiloted suborbital flight. Joining Bezos on the historic flight is the youngest person ever to fly in space, 18-year-old Oliver Damon. Damon is set to take off with Bezos on the New Shepard rocket. Fellow passenger 82-year-old Wally Funk will become the oldest. Damon wasn't originally set to be on the trip. Blue Origin says the mystery bidder, who paid $28 million for the seat, had scheduling conflicts. So they bumped up Damon, who participated in an auction and secured a seat on the second flight. Blue Origin did not disclose how much he paid. As for the original winner, that person will fly on a future mission. Damon graduated from high school in 2020 and took a gap year to get his private pilot's license. He is set to attend the University of Utrecht in the Netherlands in September to study physics and innovation management. And now, before we head into the weekend, let's take a moment to look at modern hieroglyphs, or emojis. Adobe released its global emoji trend report ahead of World Emoji Day, which is Saturday. The report surveyed 7,000 people in the US, UK, Germany, France, Japan, Australia, and South Korea. The report found 88% of global emoji users say they are more likely to feel empathetic towards someone that uses emojis, with 67% of them thinking emoji users are funnier, cooler, and friendlier than people who don't use them. More than half say emojis have positively impacted their mental health. A whopping 90% say using an emoji makes it easier to express themselves. 51% are more comfortable expressing emotions through emoji than in-person conversations. 55% are more comfortable expressing emotions through emoji than phone calls. And 89% of them agree that emojis make it easier for them to communicate across language barriers. The little army of smiley faces have changed the way we communicate. 75% believe it's okay to send an emoji as a quick response instead of words. 63% of Gen Zers say they used emojis differently from their intended meaning. Now, as to what's the most popular emoji, the debate is over. Laughing till you cry is officially the most popular emoji in the world. The thumbs up emoji came in second, followed by the red heart emoji. The flirtatious wink and kiss, and sad face with a tear rounded out the top 5. Adobe released the findings ahead of World Emoji Day on Saturday. And staying on emojis, Microsoft is bringing back the virtual assistant known as Clippy back as an emoji. Clippy debuted in Windows 97 as a small paperclip to help Microsoft Office users. It got the boot 10 years later in Office 2007. After a 14-year hiatus, it resurfaced earlier this year for a single day as an animated sticker in Microsoft Teams. Now, ahead of Saturday's World Emoji Day, Microsoft says it will replace its standard paperclip emoji with an image of Clippy. Microsoft teased the return on a tweet Wednesday, saying if it got 20,000 likes, it would make the switch. Clippy is part of a larger refresh of 1,800 emojis across all Microsoft apps and services. The full refresh will roll out later this year. Some of the new ones have already been unveiled, like this multiracial handshake and the pregnant man, which is causing some confusion. Some say it looks like a beer belly or post all-you-can-eat buffet. The designs are still subject to change, and people can vote for their favorites. But what do you think? Let me know below. Thanks for tuning in to Deep Dive. I'm Tiffany Meier, and have a wonderful weekend.